As I earlier said, I'm Obed Opoku Mensah, currently pursuing a master's program at Kangwon National University. And my presentation is on this topic, agricultural cooperatives in Korea and their impact on the country's economy, enlightenment for Ghana's agricultural sector development. The content of my presentation will fall on the introduction. I'll talk about Korea Agricultural Cooperative structure, the non-group group, and also lastly, how I'm going to make use of my knowledge after the master's program. Okay, for the basic definition of cooperative, it simply means a user ownership, a user controlled, and user benefits entity according to USDA. And it's known that people organize or belong to cooperative do so for a variety of reasons. Some are economic, social, and even political. One way we can achieve our purposes is to cooperate to assist ourselves and also assisting others. And since all of us are in the agricultural sector, I'll say that farmers do cooperate to maximize their net benefit through effective marketing of their produce and to bring the cost of inputs as low as possible. So according to, let me say on the screen, we have some types of cooperative. I'll move on to the Korean agricultural cooperative structure. It is known that Korea has about 2 million farmers, and these farmers join various local cooperatives. They come together to form the regional cooperative, and it's known that we have about, or let me say over 1,000 regional cooperatives, comprising agricultural cooperative, the livestock cooperative, and the ginseng cooperatives. These regional cooperatives come together to form the bigger umbrella, that is the National Agricultural Cooperative Federation, which has 2 main holding companies and 35 subsidiaries. Now I'll move on to non-one group. I chose this particular entity because from my study currently, I can say this organization is really boosting Korea's economy. They are into various sectors. So as I progress, you see for yourself what I really mean. The meaning of New York simply means agricultural cooperative, and based on records, it was established in August 15, 1961. Its mission is to improve economic, social, and cultural status of farmers in Korea. And we have the various sectors, or the structure, the agribusiness and the livestock. So you can see from the screen the various sub-sectors in the major sector. So I'll move on to the Agribusiness Group International, that's the subsidiaries, whereby we have various sectors, the marketing, the manufacturing, the food and service, and the livestock. So I wouldn't talk much about it. And we move on to, aside these entities, also has a financial business group, whereby they are into various sub-entities, or let me say organizations, NH Bank, the property and casualty insurance, the NH Capital, the savings and loan, the life support, and the rest. And according to data, or let me say records, the NH Bank is the 3rd best bank in Korea, and it's really assisting, let me say, indigenous, and even they have other branches across Asia, and this particular bank is really helping Koreans and, as earlier said, other people around Asia. So this non-one group, you can Google for yourself. Because of time, I couldn't write much about it, and they are really doing marvelous things for indigenous and others outside Korea. Now move on to the practical use of my knowledge after the master's program. Currently, or let me say, my work is more about trainings and workshops and the rest. So I'll go about these methods. Stakeholders within the food value chain will receive knowledge on agricultural marketing and innovation through training, seminars, and I'll try to help to develop new strategies to diversify income sources. Information on cost and financial benefits of Korea agricultural policies will be documented for policymakers. Such documented data will drive farmers have value for money invested. Utilizing improved post-harvest practices results in higher profits for growers and marketing. Sensitize farmers through trainings on the basic principles on the use of scarce resources. Through that, there will be increase in production, nutrition will be improved, add value of agricultural products, open new marketing opportunities, and generate new jobs. Build the technical capabilities of extension agents to assist in the formation of or strengthening of FBOs or smaller groups. So in one group, it has one particular section under the agribusiness whereby they assist farmers with knowledge in terms of new methods of going about their things. I'm also into monitoring and evaluation. So I'll say that monitoring and evaluation is paramount in policy implementation. The effectiveness, the effectiveness of existing sources must be assessed. Additional data requirements must be communicated, and solutions must be found to close significant information gaps. This requires close collaboration between data providers and users. So in a nutshell, this would be my method of imparting knowledge to farmers and other agricultural officers, or let me say, the general public. So this would be my training cascade, whereby I'm a regional officer. So the knowledge will be transferred right from the region to the field, to our dear farmers. So at the regional level, we have the trainers will be the regional agricultural officers, whereby we have the TOTs, training of trainers in in-house program. We get to the district level or the municipal level or the metro. The trainers will be those who receive the training at the TOTs, and they will have the joint trainings. We move on to the community level, whereby the DAOs or the district agricultural officers who got trained at the regional level or the AEs will be the trainers. And these trainings will be the on-site trainings at the training plots. Key farmers will be involved as facilitators or AEs. We also have our demo plots to set up. We also organize field trips and the likes. And the major target group will be our dear farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Obed. The next person to share some knowledge with us is Mr. Daniel Ninson. Mr. Daniel, please, are you on? If you're on, we would like to hear from you. Great. Thank you very much.
Right. I'm sharing my screen. So. Okay, I believe my screen is on now, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, let me put it in slide mode and then, yeah, okay. So thank you very much for the opportunity. So I had the opportunity to study at the Kyungpook National University from 2020 to 2021, precisely in December. So my presentation will largely focus on my thesis, what my experience was with the research that I undertook in crop physiology, the outcomes, the implications, and basically to zoom in on the research relevance, the application. And after going through all this, what my own opinion of what the Korean education or experience actually offers to anyone who is actually seeking opportunity in there. So abiotic stress, it's a major environmental factor that influences agricultural production and precisely crops. And it's manifested through different factors, heavy metal contamination in soils through to extreme weather conditions, basically temperatures. With current climate change phenomenon, we have also seen much of droughts, flooding, increasing temperatures, and then also accumulation of salt, precisely salinity. And these are all things that are within the ecosystem of production, the influences that will happen. So for this study, I particularly zoom in on heavy metals. Precisely for the purpose of this research, I focus on cadmium, which is basically one of those chemical elements with high density and have the ability to exert toxicity at very low concentrations to plants that are going within that environment. Key question is how or where are the sources of cadmium? Cadmium naturally occurs in soils, basically through weathering, erosion, and whatnot. And the other big part is through human causes, through production of paint, various batteries, the application or the excessive application of fertilizers, pesticides, all have components of these that get deposited into the soil. So once they get into the soil and there's an uptake from plants, it affects two main physiological pathways of plants, disrupts their metabolism, their physiology, and then there's also marked expressions on the plants where you have issues about chlorosis, necrosis, leaf roll, and various distractions in the plants. Now, there are various techniques that have been developed to be able to remediate soils that have been contaminated with cadmium, ranging from both physical, technological, chemical, biological methods, but all of them have their own limitations as well. So there has been current drive to look for more of an environmental approach that is more sustainable and also very safe. And there are various works that has been done on soil microbes, precisely the plant growth promoting rhizobacterium that have proven to exhibit some traits or properties that could actually immobilize or dislodge some of these uptake of these heavy metals. There are also naturally occurring biostimulants that also have similar properties that, if harnessed, could also help to be able to ameliorate or reduce the impact of these cadmium-induced stresses on plants. So this actually led to the design of this research, which basically was to investigate or first screen out various microbes that have those properties and actually test them on the plant. For the case of this research, we use the soya bean because research has actually shown that it is very vulnerable to some of these heavy metals, especially at the formative stages. And throughout the program, we did stress levels of different concentrations of the cadmium to be able to understand how they could adapt to the conditions. And the assessment was done through analysis of the growth attributes, biomass, chlorophyll content. We also studied the uptake in the plants and then also evaluated antioxidants. usually when a plant growing in its natural environment is actually under stress, what it means is that there's an increased production of reactive oxygen species, which increases the oxidative stress, and there's also marked signs in terms of destruction in the molecular and then also cell damages as well. Plants will normally react in two ways: by basically activating their own anti-oxidative defense system. Sometimes they might just want to exclude themselves, or they might want to dislocate or accumulate some of these heavy metals to certain parts of the plants that might not affect it. So in setting up the experiment, we had to germinate the test plants, which in this case is the soya bean, do some transplanting. We administered treatments which had different combinations of both the microbe that we discovered that had or confers resistance to plants, and then also using a biostimulant, particularly humic acid for this. We undertook our data collection. We prepared the samples for further analysis as well. Wouldn't want to bore you too much with all the details, but there were a number of analyses that we did, from observing the optical density of the microbes, basically looking at their population growth, various acid analysis, antioxidant analysis. So yeah, I mentioned that we have to observe their population over time, and we realized that the combined effect of both the microbe, the tolerant microbe, as well as the biostimulants had some marked reduction in terms of influence of the cadmium on them. These are some of the organic test analysis that we did, all showing that the two, or the combined treatment of these two, actually led to the production of various acids that are part of the anti-oxidative defense system that plants usually activate to be able to help them to be able to adapt and also confer tolerance in such cadmium-induced stress conditions. We also did a detailed study on the indole acetic acids. These are more or less various defense mechanisms that the microbes also release to be able to help them to be adapt. So if you look at the second set of the bars, you realize that there was, with increasing concentration of the cadmium, you realize that the production of the IAA was down. But then in the second set of bars, you realize that there was some positive or significant tolerance that was exhibited for the plant. So this is just a pictorial view of what the stress levels are and which of the plants, depending on the treatment that we gave them, was able to actually suffice and be able to maintain their tolerance for the cadmium. We also did a detailed root study, and again, you could realize from the pictures that those that had the combination of the humic acid plus the resistant microbe did so well, even with the under the cadmium, the various cadmium stress levels as well. This table only shows or gives more details about the root shoot length, the fresh weight, and how they were impacted under the various treatments that we issued. This is more of a study on the oxidative stress markers. I did mention that once the stress is induced, there's increase in reactive oxygen species, oxidative stresses goes higher, and there's also molecular and cellular damages. This shows how the combination of the two were able to suppress those negative effects on the plant as well. The same for these other stress markers that we studied. So at the end of the entire experiment, it was very clear in terms of the impacts of plants that were growing under both the stress conditions and those that were also going under the normal conditions. And you realize that the number of things that were happening physiologically that contributed to the plants having that tolerance and ability. Key among them was the fact that there was chlorophyll content increase that was able to help with the photosynthesis, and for that matter, the plants were able to develop and also grow under even those conditions. So all that I've talked about, what are the relevance to our own context here, and how can this be applied? So as I mentioned, abiotic stress is one of the environmental conditions that is actually hampering crop losses, and it's a major threat to agriculture and by extension food security, because we've seen the manifestations of them, especially through drought, flooding, salinity, all around us. And if we do a potential cost analysis, you realize that it's quite significant with implications on both economical, ecological systems in the growing environment of plants. There's therefore the need to look for more of a sustainable approaches to that. The results of this shows that yes, this is possible. It's something that research could look into, that could develop it further to be able to. So the knowledge and the in-depth understanding of how this actually works in terms of the stress development to the mitigation will underlie interactions key in development of detailed programs that will help to be able to boost crop productivity, even under the various abiotic stress conditions, as I have mentioned earlier. So how could this be applied? There are various prospects. Some have already started developing, especially in the developed world, that could easily be integrated into what we do here. There's potential for biofertilizer production, where these microbes actually can be commercialized through their integration into fertilizers, and they can enhance crop growth and also mitigate the detrimental effects. There are also known applications used in breaking seed dormancy, where seeds of certain plants have difficulty in rupturing their seed coats, and for that matter, being able to even germinate and establish. This could also be used. In heavy metal remediation, we also realize that there are so many soils around that have also been contaminated by some of these heavy metals. For example, if you go to the Agbogloshi area, where there's also very heavy dumping of some of these materials like batteries and all that. These are areas that are heavily contaminated with some of these heavy metals. There's a possibility that we could use some of these microbiostimulant interaction to be able to remediate some of these soils by that removing the heavy metals, making it safer for subsequent production, or dislodging these heavy metals and still making those lands still productive for production. There's also applications in biopriming, where they have been used to enhance germination percentages, improve seed vigor, and also enhance yield and crop protection as well. So as I wrap up, there are a number of things that you stand to gain through studies in Korea. And this is heavily focused on the research experience. Your capability in terms of analysis, sourcing for information, interpreting applying them it's also enhanced because it's more of a self-learned system where you are only giving guidance, but much of the work is also dependent on you. And the exposure that you get working with some of the top researchers in the field also enhances your research competence. And then above all, you are also able to specialize in your area on field of knowledge because there's so much exposure, both practically, theoretically, and through your own experience through research. You are also better able to also enhance your knowledge in any field that you find yourself actually studying. So that would be my presentation for this afternoon. Thank you.